Hudson's Bay, an iconic Canadian brand, but unfortunately, the reality is that as much as Canadians do appreciate Hudson's Bay and the fact that it is Canada's oldest retailer, a lot of Canadians don't shop there. And that is why it is back in court today, where it is getting approval, trying to get approval to begin liquidating its entire business, putting more than 9,000 jobs at risk. Joining us right now, I've got John Nguyen, who's the CEO and co-founder of Hair Republic Group. The closure, potentially, of this huge spot at the Rideau Center is going to impact him if it happens. Thank you so much for calling into the show.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
John, I just want to set this up for our listeners so they understand. If the bay at the Rideau Center does close, how is this going to impact your business?
Well, we do have other locations here in Ottawa that we would have to essentially look at consolidating locations. It's not ideal to do so from a logistics standpoint because we have staff coming from different parts of the city, so that could be very inconvenient. And then moving all of our assets is another operational nightmare for us, as you can imagine.
And when did you hear about this at first?
We actually found out on our own. I got an email last late Friday afternoon by a colleague of mine that Hudson's Bay was filing a creditor protection. And then I emailed my Hudson's Bay representative to talk about whether we can have a meeting ASAP on this, because I had no clue that they were planning on closing.
Wow. That must have been tough to find that out.
It was. Only because we had talked with Hudson's Bay about a month prior about our expansion plans across Ontario, and there were open ears about giving us access to other locations across the GTA.
So this really came as a surprise to you.
Big time. I mean, there was some red flags in 2024 when we started seeing some leadership changeovers. We started seeing some operational challenges within Hudson's Bay themselves.
What do you mean by that, operational challenges?
They had no AC or no heat in the wintertime. Being a salon, obviously, you can imagine all the hair dryers and blowers throughout the course of the summer. So that also increases the temperature inside our space. So the lack of air conditioning, or they set the temperature at a certain limit so that we couldn't have control over that.
Ooh,
so
it must have been hot in there.
It was. But we made good. We found creative ways to keep cool and added our own, fans and whatnot.
I understand at some locations, not the ones that you were in, but it was so bad that at one location, a landlord locked the store out. At another location in Canada, a bailiff showed up to seize merchandise. You never saw anything like that.
We didn't see that, but that actually happened at the Sherway locations in Etobicoke, and one of our stores is inside that location.
So you caught wind of it?
Yeah, we caught wind of it, so it's pretty wild. And then because we're headquartered in Ottawa, we can only get reports from our leadership team at the store that would report back to us. So we didn't... it was quite surprising.
So just to back it up a little bit here, and I know you're trying to process the news, and this is in court today, John, how are you trying to prepare for the future right now? Can you prepare for the future?
Yeah, I've been checking the news every hour, to be honest with you, trying to refresh my browser. I like to take a proactive approach on things, just because I don't like to be surprised by events like this. So I'm trying to plan for worst case scenario. If we do have to close both stores between Toronto and Ottawa, I might have to do so. Much harder to do that in Toronto because we don't have multiple stores, so I cannot really consolidate into another location. Whereas Ottawa is a bit much easier. So I'm planning for the worst. I'm communicating very closely with my team, with the employees at the store level, making sure that things are under control. But at the same time, I also need to make sure that I have to maintain some liquidity just to make sure that we could emerge from this, because there's still a lot of outstanding balances that they still owe us, which I have to find a way to keep things afloat.
And I know you probably don't want to disclose this on the air, but I do have to ask, is this a substantial amount that you're owed?
I am listed on the unsecured creditor list online, so it's all public information now. So our number right now stands at 35,000. That takes us till the end of February. So any money that we would receive from our services rendered in March, starting today even, it would still be owed to us if we continue to operate within their space.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'd love to follow up with you, and I do wish you the best of luck, John.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thanks for joining us. That's John Nguyen, who's the CEO and co-founder of Hair Republic Group. They've got a couple of locations, as you heard, 3 locations here in the capital, 1 in Toronto, and the Ottawa location is in the Bay itself. So is the Toronto location that he mentioned. It's in the Bay. So if the Bay does liquidate, which it's asking for permission to do in court today, he'd have to vacate. And it would really depend on exactly what happens next. But as you can hear, it's pretty tough for them to muddle through and to try and respond before anything has been finalized.